Hey everybody, Dr. Kathy Groover here, coming to you from Santa Barbara, California. And I am so honored to be a part of this amazing event and so excited to get to share with you just a few tips on how we can manage the stress that we are all dealing with right now. This has been an incredibly difficult last year, and it looks like we're finally coming out of it, but I'm still seeing a lot of clients, friends, family dealing with the residual fallout of that stress, of that anxiety. So I wanted to just talk to you about that and give you a couple tools and tips that can help you manage this stress. So the first thing that I want to say is, ironically, stress is actually not the problem, right? Because we can't control the stress. We can't control anything that's going on outside of ourselves. If we could control it, then we would, and it wouldn't be stress. It would just be this other thing we have to deal with. So right off the bat, understanding that stress is those things we can't control, but what we can control is our response to those things. We can control our thoughts and the actions that we take having to do with that stress. Do we want to eliminate stress as much as we can? Absolutely. But when we find it bearing down on us with seemingly no end in sight, we can at least make the choice to respond differently to what is happening around us. So I'll give you a couple tools to do that in a second, but I wanted to just go over a few of the warning signs of stress. So stress affects us on all levels. It not only affects our physical health, our emotional health, our behavioral health, our cognitive functioning is affected by stress. It affects our communication, our leadership, and our relationships. So from a cognitive perspective, we get forgetful. We're not as creative. We tend to have memory issues, maybe thoughts of running away. We lose our sense of humor, and those things that we used to enjoy, maybe we're not finding pleasure in anymore. Maybe that dance class just isn't holding it for you anymore. Maybe we find that we're crying a little bit more. We're angry. We're lonely. We're easily triggered and upset. With some of the behavioral symptoms, maybe it's you get bossy, or you find you're grinding your teeth, or you're drinking a little bit more than you know you want to or should be drinking. You start to get critical of others, maybe even bullying. And then the physical symptoms, I think we're most familiar with. It's the headaches, it's the sleeplessness, maybe dizziness, tight neck and shoulders. Here's the thing with these warning signs, though. We so often normalize these things. We say, well, of course my shoulders are up around my ears, and of course I'm clenching my jaw, and of course I'm crying all the time. This is normal. I'm here to tell you it's actually not normal. Sure, every once in a while we're down, every once in a while maybe our shoulders are tight, every once in a while we have a bad night's sleep. But the amazing thing about our body is it looks for homeostasis. It tries to normalize all these things that are going on long term. So if you recognize some of these signs in yourself, in the people around you, your children, your spouse, your partner, people who you're working with, people in the organization that you are around, if you notice they're repeatedly dealing with these things, this is a sign that something's wrong. It's a red flag that your body and your mind and your soul is waving that you need help. It's okay to reach out for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on people, especially during such a difficult time. And it's also totally okay for you, if noticing these signs in other people, to reach out a hand and say, do you need anything right now? Because if we continue with these things, it's, again, not only going to affect our physical health, but our emotional, our spiritual health, our cognitive health. We want to do everything we can do to stay as healthy as possible. So let's say that you have noticed some of these symptoms, let's say in yourself. What are some things we can do? Well, we can definitely try to control stress as much as we can, knowing that there are just some things that we can't control. We're going to have to learn to let that go. In the meantime, it's about responding rather than reacting, right? We want first responders. We don't want first reactors. No one's ever had a knee-jerk response, and no one's ever accused you of over-responding. It's those reactions that get us in trouble. And the easiest way to start to control our reactions and turn them into responses is things like meditation, mindfulness practices, breath work. So right now I want to teach you a really simple exercise, and this is going to start to make a major change in how stress affects you. Everyone right now, if you're in a safe place to do so, please close your eyes and just take a deep breath in and out, and then open your eyes when you're done with that. Yeah. Just that feels good, right? Just taking that brief moment. Well, I want to expand on that exercise just a little bit, and I'm going to have you do that breath again, but this time there's a little more instruction. I want you to really watch that breath. I want you to observe that breath. I want you to look at that breath as if you're watching someone else breathe. And here's what I want you to look out for. I want you to see if you can tell where that inhale starts and stops. And then there's that brief little pause at the top of the breath. And then to see if you can tell where that exhale starts and stops. And then there's that brief little pause at the end of the breath. So go ahead and close your eyes and just do that for me. That inhale, noticing an exhale in your own time, and then open your eyes when you're done. Beautiful. Could you tell the difference? You notice when you're doing the breath that way, it's a little slower. It's a little quieter. And when I'm able to actually be in person with people and I have them do the first breath, this is just typically what I see for that first breath. It's maybe the first conscious breath you've taken all day, maybe the first conscious breath you've taken ever. But what's so great about this breath, especially when you're slowing it down and concentrating on it, is several things. It's a pause. And in that pause, there is power, because in that pause, you get to make a couple decisions. You decide whether you're going to respond or react. It brings you back to this present moment. And in this present moment, there is no stress. The stress is behind us in those things that we are dragging forward, and in the future, in those what ifs. Remember those what ifs? Those what ifs that keep us up in the middle of the night. What if this doesn't get any better? What if I lose my job? What if my mother-in-law moves in? What if he leaves? What if she stays? What if I lose my, there's all these what ifs projecting into the future. As much as we can, staying present in this moment, in the here and now, it decreases that stress. The other thing that breath does is it brings us back to our body. And as soon as we start to concentrate on our breath, it basically shuts out everything else around us. It also signals to our brain that we're okay. Because in that fight or flight response, one of the first things that happens is our breathing changes. Either our breathing quickens and we get ready to run from that bear, or get angry at our boss, or we hold our breath and we become that bunny rabbit that if we hold our breath, then we don't have to notice that one of those two things typically happens. If we start to concentrate on our breath and we do this very rhythmic, noticing the rise and fall of the chest, it signals to our brain, hey, we're okay. We don't need that fight or flight response. We don't need that stress response. And in speaking about that fight or flight response, that was a very chemical response. That was what our bodies mounted when we truly were under threat. You're walking through the woods and a bear jumps out, and you have that fight or flight response. Now our threat isn't a bear jumping out. It's these things off in the future. It's these things we're creating in our minds. What is going to happen on Monday? What if, what if, what if? Or, hey, I did that thing I feel really bad about. It's not fight or flight worthy, right? It's when we've walked through the garden, we go, and we think it's a snake, and it's in reality a garden hose. We've all done that. Thank goodness we have that reaction. It has allowed us evolutionarily, if that's a word, to survive until this point. But for so much of this stress, it's not a physical threat that deserves this chemical response. It's things that are happening in our mind or things that are happening around us. And the more we look for those negative things, the more we're going to find those negative things. This is how our brain works. When our brain thinks something, two parts of our brain communicate. So if we're thinking a negative thought, these two parts of our brain are going to communicate. When we stop thinking that thing, the connection stops, but there's this little trail of dust that stays. But the more we think that same theme of thoughts, negative, 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 even when we stop thinking it, the connection stays until eventually it connects. It's called neuroplasticity. It's a very basic way of explaining it, but what fires together wires together. So if you want to change your thinking, if you want to change your life, if you want to change those outcomes, you have to start changing your thinking. I love affirmations for this. Affirmations, make them short, positive, in the present moment, repeat them often. I am healthy and well. I am prosperous and abundant. Because the more you start to shift those positive thoughts, the more positive things you're going to see. I want to do a quick exercise right now. I want you to look around the room you're in and just notice everything you can that's red. Noticing red, memorizing new red stuff for me. Noticing everything that's red, memorizing everything that's red. Excellent. Now, close your eyes and try to recall everything you saw that was blue. I know. Okay, it's massively unfair. That's very unfair. But the blue stuff didn't disappear, did it? The blue stuff is there because now you can look around and see all the blue stuff that you weren't paying attention to. If you're only focused on the negative, if you're only focused on the pain, the lack, the unfairness, whatever it is, you're never going to see the good stuff. shift your focus, shift your perspective. And I know we only have a couple minutes left because I'm just coming to you for a brief little moment. I want to teach you my favorite technique. For those of you who are formal meditators, this is going to be a little bit different for you. For those of you who think you can't meditate, and this was me, I'm very type A. I'm from the East Coast in the United States. I talk fast, obviously. Sorry about that. I walk fast. I think fast. My brain goes a mile a minute. I've never really been able to meditate. I found myself sitting at Harvard and they said, we're going to go over the rules of meditation. And I had these misconceptions, right? I knew you had to touch a certain finger together. I didn't know which one. That kind of freaked me out. Your eyes rolled back in your head. Your tongue touched somewhere. You controlled how you breathe. You blanked at your mind, which was impossible. If it itched, you couldn't scratch it. If it cramped, too bad. And then you floated away into a million bubbles. That's what I thought meditation was. And I learned a mini meditation, and I've taught this to probably millions of people around the world, and I'm excited to share it with you. So I invite you once again to close your eyes and go ahead and just concentrate on your breath, noticing that rise and fall of the chest. And you're not trying to slow it down, and you're not trying to speed it up. You're just noticing it, using that as the anchor in the body to shut everything else out. And on your next inhale, think, I am. And on all of your inhales, think, I am. And on your next exhale, think, at peace. And on all of your exhales, think, at peace. So it's inhale, I am. Exhale, at peace. And when other thoughts intrude, which they probably will, just dismiss them without judgment. Let them float away like clouds on a summer day and return to the inhale, I am. Exhale, at peace. And you can move your body if you want. You can let your shoulders drop. You can relax your belly because no one's looking. Just knowing that the breath is the anchor. Inhale, I am. Exhale, at peace. You can do this for 30 seconds. You can do this for 5 minutes. You can do this for a half an hour. Inhale, I am. Exhale, at peace. And just dismiss those other thoughts. They'll be there when you get back. Beautiful. You're doing great. Now let's take one last inhale, I am. Exhale, at peace. And open your eyes and come back to the room. You did it. You meditated. And what this trains us to do, this and the affirmations, the breath work and the mindfulness practices, the more you can get comfortable just dismissing those thoughts without judgment, not beating yourself up over it, not thinking you're a failure, not thinking you're bad at it, the more you're going to find yourself responding rather than reacting. So I'm out of time. I taught you breath work. I talked briefly about affirmations, and I taught you the mini meditation, which is my most favorite thing. Pay attention to those warning signs of stress. And if I can be of any assistance, reach out to me. I do one-on-one and group coaching. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an author. I can be reached at kathygroover.com or kathygroover.coach. Please let me know how I can help. I am here and love talking about this. I love teaching people about mindfulness, about meditation, about communication, how you can be better at your job and how you can bring your best you forward. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the event, the rest of the conference. Have an amazing day. Remember, you are at peace. Take that breath. Be comfortable in your body and just allow this beautiful present moment to unfold in front of you. Have an amazing day. And I look forward to seeing you again.